Good afternoon. Please stand, if you are able, for the presentation of colors by the UNLV Army ROTC Honor Guard, followed by the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly wheeled at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the fight, all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets had glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
You may be seated. Thank you to our vocalist, senior voice major Madeline Salazar, mezzo-soprano from the UNLV School of Music, Professor David Loeb, who is the David Mulkey, MD, and Laura Taylor Mulkey, Chair in Jazz and Commercial Music, for the piano accompaniment, and the UNLV Army ROTC Honor Guard for the presentation of colors. We would also like to thank the Performing Arts Center for welcoming us back to the Judy Bailey Theater and to UNLV TV for their live stream, and Public Radio KUNV 91.5 for their live broadcast of today's address. I am Dr. Deborah Arteaga, and I have the privilege of serving as Faculty Senate Chair this year. Before we begin our program, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas wishes to acknowledge and honor the indigenous communities of this region and to recognize that the university is situated on the traditional homelands of the Nuwu Southern Paiute people. We offer gratitude for the land itself, for those who have stewarded it for generations, and for the opportunity to study, learn, work, and be in community with this land. We are delighted to have many distinguished guests joining us in the audience today. We would first like to recognize members of our Nevada System of Higher Education Board of Regents in attendance. Regent Byron Brooks, Regent Heather Brown, Regent Carlos Fernandez, and former Regent and now State Senator Shelley Cruz Crawford. We would also like to recognize representatives in attendance today from the Nevada Congressional Delegation, the Nevada State Legislature, state officials, as well as members from the Clark County government, the City of Las Vegas, the City of Henderson, area chambers of commerce, and UNLV student government, CSUN and GPSA. Thank you all for joining us today. It is now my great pleasure to introduce UNLV President Keith E. Whitfield to you. I first met President Whitfield when he came to interview at the height of the pandemic. Those of us in the audience were masked and seated 6 feet apart. Remember those days? I attended the presentations of all 4 candidates. What caught my eye while reviewing President Whitfield's application materials was that in addition to his vast administrative experience, he had a prolific research record, including over 200 articles and book chapters, 5 books, and millions of dollars in research grants. But what struck me the most when I spoke with him afterwards were his humility and warmth. Before his presentation, he was already my first choice, and afterwards, I was confident that he was the leader that UNLV needed for the future. President Whitfield has faced 2 very challenging situations. First, the pandemic, and then the horrific shooting on December 6th, 2023. I want to focus on the latter. The shooting has affected every member of the UNLV community. I lost a dear friend and fellow linguist, Japanese professor Dr. Naoko Takemaru, a gentle soul who was one of the best human beings I have ever known. From the beginning, President Whitfield, a psychologist by training, focused on our mental health. He spearheaded the UNLV Strong website and continues to check in with the campus community to make sure that we are aware of available resources. In the months following the shooting, Whenever he came across students on campus, he would stop and ask them how they were doing. UNLV also provided a stipend of $1,500 to offset mental health expenses. My experience was that the application process for those funds was sufficient and the payment was prompt. These actions illustrate President Whitfield's humanity. He recognizes that the essence of UNLV is its people. He has told me many times that we are the reason that he loves what he does. And finally, as President Whitfield knows, campus security continues to be a top priority for the UNLV community. Before we welcome UNLV President Keith E. Whitfield to the stage, let's take a look back at UNLV through the years.
Good morning, Rebels. Coming to you live from the #1 rated public radio station in Southern Nevada and the 2024 Smooth Jazz Station of the Year, KUNV 91.5 FM at UNLV. It's another bright blue sky day in the Valley and a great time to get up and make your dreams come true. Here's a famous classic song to spark your imagination.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You've seen this show before. I love it. I hope that you're as excited as I am to take a moment out of our busy days to think about UNLV and think about our future. You know, but it's interesting because that little piece there almost represents most of my days of that I wake up, I put my feet on the ground, and I say, it's a good day to be a rebel. And did you see all of those, the history pictures there? Aren't they fascinating? And isn't it amazing that that's relatively recent? You know, in the span of time, not even being 70 years old as an institution, we're a young institution. But look at where we've come from and look at where we are today. And so as I thought about this, you know, state of the universities, you know, you're supposed to kind of talk about the current things and then, you know, what's happening now. And I really want us today have a little conversation about some of the things that are happening now, because some of you all may not know, there's amazing things happening at this university. But I also want us to take a moment to think about, there was a great slide there, it was from 2000. Think about what we look like in 2000 and think about what we look like now. We're a different place. We've grown, we've matured, we've expanded. I think about Carol Harder, who we lost not too long ago. And she was an absolutely fantastic mentor for me. I would ask her questions and she could give me this great history. But I thought about her time period and what happened during then to bring us up to where we are now. So I'm reminded about the evolution, but I also still want to talk about some of the things going on today. So that's what we're going to spend a little time on today, just kind of share with you some of the stuff you know, maybe some of the stuff you don't know. Now, we live in a time that is extremely challenging. I think we're seeing lots of things happen. I'm really worried sometimes about 25 because we started off with fires in Los Angeles and deaths that were happening from accidents and tsunamis. Just everything was happening. We have a new administration. It's going to bring change. And so we've started off 25, you know, kind of feeling like we're on the edge of our chairs. But we've got to think positively. We've got to think about the future of ourselves, of our state, of our city, of our country, but even more than anything else, of UNLV. So I like to think about where we've come from. I mean, I really do. I don't dream all the time, but I dream in color. And the dreams I remember. And I've had these dreams about what is UNLV going to look like in 25 years. We can go back to 2000 or 25. What are we going to look like in 2050? And you start to think that that's a long way away. It sounds like, you know, a big number. But it's not that far away. It's in most of our futures of what we're going to see, what this university is going to become. Now, with all the changes that are going on, there's lots of conversations. And one of the things that I want, that I think our university demands, and I think is one of our values, is that we try to have conversations with one another. Just because we have differences of opinion does not mean that we can't talk with one another. And maybe more so now than ever, we need to make sure we have as civil a conversations as we can, even when we have differences of opinion. I am hoping that for every student that has both graduated and will ever graduate from this university, because that's going to lead you into the future, a future that is global in nature. It's going to require that we be able to talk with one another, to understand each other's differences, and then be able to find ways to go forward. So while we're seeing policies change, I mean, my leadership team has done an incredible job. Actually, I want to take a step back and say thank you very much, Debbie Urquiaga, for that incredible introduction. I greatly appreciate you. Faculty governance is critical for us to be able to move the university forward. So if you would, please take a second and give her a round of applause. But with all of these changes happening, we're just responding to them. We were busy before, now we're like doubly busy. And for some of this, we don't necessarily know where it's going to land, what's going to happen. But I think what's critically important is that we think about ourselves as a community that's come a long way, a community that's still moving forward. That's the Rebel community. So what I want you to do today with you is to do something that we don't always do. I mean, I think social media and all this information that we're getting, we feel like we have to be in the moment. We have to know what's going on. We feel like we know everything's going on. You don't know everything's going on. But let's stop for a minute. Let's stop feeling like we've got to just be grounded. Lift ourselves up a little bit and think, let's think about the sky as being completely blue. No clouds, no obstructions. Think about how far we can see, how far we may be able to see into the future. I'm going to give you, I think we should do it with 2 numbers just in case. I can get out of control sometimes thinking way too far ahead, but if we think of even 10 years, it's 2035. If we think of 25 years, it's 2050. Where are we going to be as an institution? What are we going to do? We need to think about what we're doing now, because some of it's going to build on that, and what we might be able to think about for the future. One of the things that when I came here, it's funny. Until you're a university president, you don't know. It's one of the best jobs you can have, but it's a weird job too, because sometimes if you got kids, they don't listen to you. Well, I started talking. People were listening to me. They were remembering what I said. And I went, ooh, did I say that? One of the things that I said is that, hey, I think by 2030 we should have 40,000 students at UNLV. And I thought I just kind of said it as an afterthought, and people started repeating it to me, and I said, well, I guess we got to stick with that now. But why? Because we should grow, because we want to be able to meet the educational needs of our region, and I don't limit where UNLV is going to be to where we are. We are already a national brand, and we're going to continue to grow as a national brand. So in lots of different ways to be able to grow. Get to 40,000. I do have to tell you a funny story. I came up with 40,000, and I was talking with the provost last summer before we got our numbers for enrollment. And I said, wow, maybe we should grow like 5% every year. Provost is a really smart guy. He goes back, he does the numbers, he goes, look, all we have to do to meet your goal of 40,000 is to grow 3.5% every year. And, I was a little disappointed with it, but I was like, okay, I can live with that. Well, sure enough, we grew by nearly 6% this last year. And it took everything that I had not to say nan and nan to the provost, but it was the idea that we are a very dynamic university that's growing in a lot of different ways, and that we have to keep thinking about where we're going to be. We can't think about it after we're already there. So then the question becomes, well, what if we take that 2050 date? How many students should we have at UNLV? Should we be some, massive mega university like ASU that, marvels somewhere around 150,000, 75,000 on campus, 75,000 online? I don't know. That one, I'm still looking at the sky, and I'm not exactly sure where we should be. But we should think that we're going to grow. I think we are definitely on track to be able to get to 40,000 by 2030. And there's a lot of things that go into being able to actually work as good a university as we are with that increased number. So something to think about. Now, one of the things as we think about growing that big, it's kind of, do we have space? Do we have the room to be able to do it? For the 40,000, yeah, just barely. But we have other things to do. What's interesting is that we have other capabilities, and we have other resources that we've been working on. And this moment in time, we can think about how those things might add to our growth as a university. For example, if we just think about land, okay, I had an interesting conversation not too long ago, maybe 3 months ago, with Regent Heather Brown, and we were talking about, master plan, and she said, well, where's the master plan for this? And I said, what's interesting? There's multiple master plans, because we've kind of done it stepwise, and then something else came up, and we made one plan for here. And what you see is that they don't always necessarily jive. So one of the things that we're talking about, we're going to talk to our board about, is to create a master plan that actually connects together the possibilities we have. We have the Maryland campus, which is 335 acres. It is interesting, in the history of this university, the deed that went to be signed had 400 acres. And I tell you, every day, I'm trying to figure out where that other 65 acres is, because we might need to use it. We also have let's call it a northern campus, that is right now beautiful, beautiful, unobstructed, giant, 2,085 acres. We also have a research park that's about 120 acres. We also have the Shadow Lane campus, approximately 25 acres. And as some of you all remember, we still have it, you don't see anything there, the Paradise campus that has 10 acres. So we have some pretty empty pallets, ones that we can do some blue sky thinking about what might be the next thing. Let me go through a couple of these specifically and share with you some of my thoughts. One is for that Central Maryland campus. As you look at, even though we're not a young campus, one of the things that challenges higher ed today more than anything else is deferred maintenance, is how do you actually keep and take care of those buildings. And so they age, and so things happen. So on our main campus, we need to be thinking about remodeling aging buildings, thinking about where we can fit some new ones in, making sure that we don't lose the beauty that is this campus, but at the same time be able to meet what our needs are. We do need more classrooms, and even more so, we need more research space. One of the interesting expansions that we are hoping to do here relatively soon with incredible generosity from a philanthropic family is to be able to expand the Early Childhood Education Center. That is going to be a great service both to people on campus, but as well to our community. One of the other thoughts that we've had for maybe something on the Maryland campus would be addressing mental health. Dr. Urquiaga, mentioned that one of the things that we focused on as we came back and as we are continuing to recover from our shooting is on mental health. And it fits perfectly what's going on in greater society. We're seeing this definitely through the K through 12 of the kids who are coming to us, that they're experiencing stress and anxiety and depression and all those things, and we need to be prepared for it. So we need to have a new building. And also what would go into that new building would be new degrees of thinking about ways in which we can actually help the workforce. We've been thinking about, not only just getting doctorates like myself, but other people in the mental health field, maybe at the master's level, maybe at the undergraduate level, to be able to provide the kind of additional care that we need to be able to move our society and our community forward. As we think about the main campus, one of the big things is a research vivarium. You know what a vivarium is? It's where all the critters sit, okay? And boy, I used to work with critters. I used to have to work on weekends with critters, and that's what made me want to work with people, because I didn't want to spend all my weekends working and taking care of the little critters. But it takes a lot. There's actually very specialized kinds of conditions that need to be able to support a vivarium in terms of moving air and lots of other things. And so we need to be able to update that. That's one of our facilities that we have that really is in desperate need of change. But we've been talking for a while about a new student union. And one of the things I love is to go to the student union at different times, and I like to go and stand on the little balcony there and look down when it's full. And it's so exciting to see so many students on campus being here, embodying, enjoying college life. But you do see that we're a little stretched. And so there's been a plan to think about either building that building larger, or maybe even putting another student union site on another part of our campus. We've been playing around with those ideas. That's maybe a 10-year project. It's going to take a little while. But one of the other things to think about putting to it would be a freshman tower complex. What's the benefit of that? The benefit is at many schools, what you try to do with your freshman class is to get them on campus and get them kind of connected to the university, knowing where resources are, knowing where other people are. One of the things that I want to give a shout out to our faculty, that our faculty, I've heard it too many times now, they provide opportunities during their instruction so that students actually get to know each other. With a campus that really only has about 1,800 beds on our campus, about maybe 4,500 around our campus, people come from other places to our campus. And so, there's only so much time that they actually get to kind of interact with one another versus a residential campus where it's 24/7. A tower complex for freshmen would allow them for that first year to make sure they get grounded. Because one of the things that we have found, really it's only started for 2 years, is a Rebel Ready Week, where we bring students on campus and we orient them. I want to give shout outs to Kate Corrigan and Barb Roberts, who came up with how we do it, and we continue to modify it. But what it does is that it gets students oriented. And what I love about how they've designed it, it's not only students get oriented, their families get oriented. Because one of the things that we pride ourselves on is that we don't just change individuals, we change the trajectory of families. And it is very, very important. So a freshman complex would, put people here on campus when they get started, try to make sure you get them a good start, because we want to make sure that if they start, they finish. We don't want them stopping out. We don't want them running into challenges that they may not be able to understand or face. And sometimes just knowing somebody, this is Vegas, you got to know a guy. Just knowing somebody can be able to help you get over what that hump is. That's enough about the main campus. 42 acres. I have found the history of how we got those 42 acres. Wonderful. Charge. Somebody builds a $2 billion stadium, and then all of a sudden we're playing there. And I will say, serve as the chair of the Mountain West Conference, and I still get, little comments sometimes from people saying, well, if we played in a $2 billion stadium. And I go, yeah, maybe so. But it leaves us with a grand opportunity of 42 acres that sits in a very interesting, important place in our city. And that's one that we've been working internally, talking to the Board of Regents about what do you do with it now that we're really not going to use it for its original purpose. And in the meantime, in the current time, we're using it for short-term leases, even for some long-term leases, and just using the ground for its value and being able to hopefully recoup that as we continue to think about it. That'll be a part of a master plan, is to think about what to do with that. If we go east, one of the things that we've done really in the last 5 years is, I can see some people out there, I was like, yeah, you were from 2000, you were from 2012. I mean, you know what Rebel Plaza is. It's right across the street. It wasn't available for a long time. I thought that we were just doing something that, no one had thought about before. Again, I refer back to Carol Harder, and she said, we've been trying to get that damn property for over 20 years. And we just had an opportunity to get it, and so we have a wonderful place to be able to expand right across the street. Where we will put there, we need to talk about it and think about it. But it's, again, you got to get the blue sky thinking about where it is. I can remember one conversation that we've already had about one particular building we thought about putting there. People thought, oh, it's too far away. It's too far away. Well, if you wanted to get to the Carol Harder building. And I said, well, what if you're at TAM and you have to get to the Carol Harder building? It's about the same distance. But we haven't processed that. We think about what we have now, and we have to start thinking about what we're going to look like in the future, because that's not going to be a big area to traverse. So there's a possibility there. We purchased the PEF building. And so we have a presence on the eastern side of Maryland Parkway. Now, saying Maryland Parkway may not be the most popular thing to talk about right now because of the wonderful traffic that you get to run into on Maryland Parkway, but it's going to be done. Remember, it's the future. We're going to think about the future. And when it's done, it's going to be a place that is even more welcoming and greater opportunity for us to be able to expand. We also have the Paradise campus. We have torn down the old buildings that were there. I'm surprised I don't get a round of applause for that. And we haven't fully thought about what we would do there, and we need to do that through a process to think about what do we do next. We also have a research park. And one of the interesting things about Research Park, it's been growing since I got here. Incredible people like Bo have been getting companies from everywhere to come. We're thinking about that a little bit more, but one of the interesting pieces that we bought early on was, it's called the Briova building. And one of the big challenges that we have as we try to think about healthcare, which I'm going to come back to here in just a minute, is that we needed to have more wet lab space. Well, that building happens to be able to facilitate wet lab space because it's designed for it. And so at some point in time when there's lessees in there, when they move out, we can again start thinking, but that means we need to think now what we might do with it, how we might grow, what opportunities there might be even for public-private relationships. And then the North Las Vegas campus, I think every year that I'm here, we get told it's 2 years away. And so we're waiting, but someday it's going to be ours. And what we've been doing is talking to North Las Vegas, you know, as a university that's a community engaged university. We don't want to just build stuff and it not be connected to the university or not be connected to the community. We want to do things that are actually connected to the things that are happening, growing, changing in our community. That particular 2,085 acres, I think, offers a wonderful opportunity for public-private partnerships, which are all the rage now, where we can try to help bring in new industry and economic development. But one of the other things that I have been dreaming about, it started as a dream, and then I put it on a napkin, and then it got to be an ugly PowerPoint, and people now still laugh at me when I show it to them, is that I want to build a tiny home village there. Okay? Now, if you get a chance, hopefully maybe today, there'll still be some time, it's still light, we have an example of a tiny home on our campus. And it gets you the idea that, you know, that would be great home ownership. And I have been thinking specifically for our graduate students, because our graduate students are suffering from what a lot of us experience, which is the cost of affordable homes. It is way out of their reach, even for rental properties. It's just ridiculous. And this has been something even that the governor has already said that he wants to see addressed. It's something that we know is a problem. And so that's one of my thoughts. But real smart graduate students were like, well, but here are the 20 problems with your idea, President Whitfield. And so one of them, which is a very valid one, which is about the distance. But remember, distance, we gotta remember this as a perception. I find it fascinating. People are like, oh, it's so far away. And I'm like, okay, so I go get in, as you all know, I have a big red truck. Get my big red truck, and I time myself. And it took 23 minutes to get there. Now, that was on a good day. But it's like, it's still not that far away. If you think about what happens when you go to a DC or an LA or one of these big cities, everything takes at least 30 minutes. So maybe it's not as far away as we think. And if we can make, and this is what I thought, opportunities for transportation back and forth, it might help us in terms of sustainability. It might help us in terms of lots of things. And so that could be a way, again, to try to get, for graduate students in particular, an opportunity for affordable housing for them. So that's just one blue sky idea that I've had. Now, I have lots of ideas. You should feel sorry for my cabinet. They hear all my crazy thoughts all the time. But it's still just dreaming because we have such a great university to dream about. Now, I'm not the only one that loves this university and that too dreams about this university. Let's talk to some of our alumni who have thought about maybe things that should happen in the future, you know, celebrating what's happening now, but thinking about for the future. Let's watch a video with them.
My history with UNLV started really back in elementary school. I went to an elementary school not far from here, and we used to take field trips. We used to walk here. From elementary school and then all the way up through high school graduation, I've participated in a number of events here on campuses geared toward locals and getting them excited about going to college. And I am a 3-time graduate of UNLV, very happy and proud of that.
I think UNLV changed my life in a profound way. I was the first person in my family to go to college, let alone graduate. And with the skill set that I got here in accounting, it allowed me to go into a related field of banking and have a lot of success.
Growing up in Las Vegas, UNLV always seemed like the university across the street, the community place where people would go, and it was very much, at the time I graduated from high school, considered a commuter school. And the thing that I would say that I think is most positive about UNLV over the years is that we now have a very great community on campus. Students go on campus, they stay on campus, they visit with friends on campus, they eat on campus. The community is there. I would say that over the years it's really transformed from a commuter school to a place that students want to be.
Our community is going to continue to grow. I'm in the business of economic development, so I'm in the business of making sure that our community has what it needs to be economically sound. And so I think the university is going to continue to be a big part of that.
I think that UNLV will be an instrumental part of all of the development and growth in our city. I think as we continue to produce some of the best and brightest students right here in the state, we're going to see that those students are leading in every industry across the state.
So I have two young kids. Right now they're 8 years old, my daughter, and a 4-year-old, my son. And they both love UNLV. My son goes to the preschool here. And my daughter had mentioned to my wife that she wants to live at UNLV and go to UNLV when she's older. And my son, who goes to the preschool here, said, you want to go to the same school that I go to? You know, he thinks he already is in UNLV, which is so cool.
UNLV is so central to all things Vegas. Like everywhere you go in the city and valley and what we do globally, when you start thinking about it, it always tends to kind of rotate and circle back to UNLV. If I try and look out a little bit further, 5, 10, 20 years, there is no other city so well known in the world that continues to evolve at such a rapid pace and attract 40, 50 million people a year from around the world to this city. I expect that in 5, 10, 20 years, we still continue to do that. And as we still continue to do that, we're going to continue to evolve and be the best city in the United States.
See, we produce smart people. I mean, smart people too that have a vision, thinking about who we can be. You know, I started off talking about some of the physical pieces, but there's more to a university than just its physical presence. There's a place where in people's minds we should have a place where we try to grow, develop, mature, alter, challenge. And we're thinking about that in some ways that I think we're doing now that are kind of, you know, advanced 21st century. One of them is that, you know, as you look and see what's happened from the pandemic, is that there has become a huge number of kids now that report that they are gamers, meaning that they live in this metaverse. They live in this universe that's been created electronically. And while I know some people think, you know, those are just games and we shouldn't worry about that, it's where they are, and it's where they're going to be for a while. And rather than just kind of poo-pooing that, we've been thinking about, well, maybe what we can do is make that as an opportunity to learn. And so we have been working and creating a space that's called Dreamscape Learn at UNLV, that's going to be about a 5,000 square foot facility that's in our lead library. And what this will do is allow students to be able to, think about it, if you took a class and it has a lab, you get to lecture, you know, sage on the stage from classroom, and then you go into a lab where you get to do things. And without having the physical constraints of physical things, you can actually make anything. And so we have 5 faculty who are working on developing content that students will be able to use, and you get, you know, all VR'd up, and you can get tactile and all these things, and you get to actually do things in the metaverse. It's forward thinking. It's not the only one, though. This is happening in lots of different fronts. Like, for example, another project that we have is to work to build a Challenger Center. And as you can imagine, it's about the Challenger spacecraft that was dedicated to the memory of that. And it is to try to teach STEM to kids in a way that's very engaging and exciting. And I think for both of these, one of the things that's so important, why they can be successful, is that it's a moment in time where you're not watching your phone, watching TV, doing other things. You're focused on just that. And the early numbers, and actually Challenger's been around for a while, the Challenger Center's been around for a while, kids start to do like a grade point better. And I think it's because what we're trying to teach them, there's no distractions. That's what they're focusing on. Wonderful opportunity. It's happening right now. We'll see what it looks like in 25 years. We also when I look at those pictures, I've looked at that, you know, the first thing when we were showing all the pictures of where UNLV's come. And of course you saw the different hairdos and the different dresses, fascinating. But when I think about that, I think, you know, there was a time really not too long ago that we did not think about ourselves or identify ourselves as a research institution. I've been in a couple of schools before here, and there's no one who remembers not being a research institution at some of those institutions. It's really only 6 or 7 years for us where we officially became one. I think we were doing it before, but it's official. And so what I have been so proud about, and that you should be so proud about, is the rate at which we are growing our research. And it's not just about the money. Like, we can talk, actually I want to give a special shout out because David Hatchett, our Vice President for Research, has been doing an incredible job at trying to see some of the changes that may be coming on federally, but as well just on a daily basis of making sure that our researchers have all the kinds of things that they need, pre-award, post-award, all that kind of stuff. So if you would give him a little round of applause. He's leading us, so every one of the two big metrics, which are research awards themselves, which is about 134 million, and also about research expenditures, because it's not just about bringing the money in, you actually have to spend the money. And that, believe it or not, sometimes is a challenge because you're trying to use every dollar very specifically, and you want to make it last. I mean, I have been a researcher before, and it was always magical. I planned for 5 years, and I always took 6 years to do it. So you want to make sure you have the money to be able to do it. But that expenditure piece of it is very important. We've been doing a good job in that. But we've got to invest and grow in what we do relative to research. And one of the primary areas that matches up with our desire to be able to build a medical school and healthcare is clinical trials. And I'll tell you, clinical trials have great benefit to our community because it's cutting edge science that's happening right here and that people will be able to benefit from it. One of the other things, I'll just be brutally honest with you, clinical trial grants are bigger. They are lots more money. I used to be so jealous of the people who did clinical trials. I felt like I was doing the same thing, and theirs was 10 million and mine was 1. And I was like, wow, wish I could do that kind of stuff. But you got to stay with what, you know, stay in your lane. We have a lane that's growing. We have a lane where at our medical school and some of our health science programs, we're growing the number of clinical researchers that are here. And that's going to be a very important piece that's going to grow our research portfolio and our profile. One of the other things that we've been doing is something that's very important. We'll see, again, we've got a lot of changes going on from the federal government, but I think it's going to hold because it's the way science is going. And that's about, it's not to poo-poo some things, but it's interdisciplinary science. It's the collision points where biology and behavior and chemistry and physiology and sociology and public, those different places where they actually meet. That is something that we need to do more of. Gwen Marchand, who is in the Vice Provost for Research office, has been, she started this really cool program with, I think it's 6 different areas of interdisciplinary research. Don't try to make me remember which ones they are. But she had a contest where she said, hey, let's see which one of you can pitch the best. And, you know, I think sometimes you all may think about your professors as these nerdy people that, you know, go home and all they do is read or whatever. They're like everybody else. They like to play games. They like to compete. So we thought maybe there's one from each one. There was 24 different teams the first time out who competed. And I know that there was other teams that were just watching because they wanted to see what happened first. And we just gave them a little bit to be able to try to help further their interdisciplinary collaborations. There's a couple of areas in particular that I really want to see done at our university. One of them is biomedical research and biomedical engineering. I'll be honest with you, partly it's because a lot of what we need in our country, a lot of what we need to advance healthcare is biomedical engineering. It falls under that rubric. And the other thing I'll be honest about is that the grants are bigger. Okay? Gonna walk away from here thinking that I'm all about the money. I'm not all about the money. It really is exciting things, and we have an incredible engineering program. We've got incredible biological sciences, and we've got a credible medical school. We should bring them together and allow the people that do those intersections to actually interact with one another. We've also got an incredible brain health department. And brain health, it doesn't matter what age you are. There have been incredible advances in Alzheimer's disease. We have a couple of the nation's leaders. I didn't stutter. The nation's leaders are right here doing research on Alzheimer's disease. But brain health is something that you can work on it when you're older, but if you ain't working on it when you're younger, you better be careful, okay? We're seeing that with people looking at traumatic brain injuries, that when you age, they really do show up a bunch of complications that really can be very detrimental. And we have people working on that. But even more so, what I'm hoping is that we actually have people doing biobehavioral work, looking at the biology and behavior. And I will be honest with you, I am a biobehavioral researcher myself. I do work that looks at genetics and behavior. And those are the kinds of things that we've got to be able to know about to be able to improve life, health, quality for our entire society. So I hope that we can be a part of that. One of the things that we're doing around research, this is the stuff that's like, it's cool to go look at, I got a good job, everyone wants to take me and show me their fancy new things. Well, seeing that we're going to have a functional MRI here that is going to be wonderful because it's not only for us and for research, it actually will be able to be used for diagnostic tools for people from the community. And I really have to give a shout out. Our ability to engage in this came from an appropriation funded by the work of two senators, Catherine Cortez Masto and Jackie Rosen. And they pulled for UNLV. So if you would, give them a round of applause. We're going to see that facility come online relatively soon. Just wait and see. We'll make sure we tell you. One of the other things going on kind of between the lines is about academic health. The long and short of academic health is the idea that I see, we've got Dean of Public Health here, some other of our health sciences deans. A lot of times they train students in their discipline and then they go out into the work world. The only problem is out in the work world, they actually work with each other, or sometimes they don't. When they don't, guess who suffers? The patient. So we need to train people with what's called interprofessional education, where they understand each other and learn how to talk to each other. It would seem like that's so crazy and basic, but that's one of the things that education can do. It trains you how to think. And you then think a certain kind of way, and in other disciplines, they think a different kind of way. So there needs to be opportunities for them to actually link together and to be able to talk with one another. We're working on that. We've got a great Dean of Medicine who's also Vice President for Health Sciences, Mark Kahn, who is working constantly. And it's been launched that we're going to have this Academic Health Center, but that's just the beginning. That's to talk about it, to create educational programs, to figure out ways that we can work with our local healthcare hospitals and be able to say, this is the kind of students that you're going to get and the kind of interaction. And so far, they've been very excited about that. So at our university, I've mentioned it once, is that we went through, it's so funny, looking at all the history of the university, as much as I take, great pride and joy in being the 11th president of this university, I am also, in history, arguably going to be the president that was here during one of the darkest days, if not the darkest day of this university, and that was December 6th, when we had a shooting on campus. And it has made it so that we had to shift our focus slightly, and that was to safety. And we should always be concerned about safety, actually. It's horrible that a tragedy actually drives that. But it did. It drove it for us. We have been making changes, never forgetting the people that we lost, but also saying, so what do we do going forward? What do we do for the next 10 years or 25 years? What are we going to look like? What is safety going to look like? We started thinking about that. We've been working on trying to make sure that we get 50 new security cameras that will come online sometime this spring, 4 new Rebel-safe emergency phones by the summertime. Technology is incredible. One of the things that's out there now that I know Metro is actually working on, we're going to work on, is license plate recognition technology. So if a bad person does something, you can actually, if you can pick up that plate, you can start following them everywhere. Because there are cameras everywhere. Don't be fooled. Be careful what you do, because there's a camera somewhere. We also want to add automatic lock buttons for inside learning spaces and upgrade wall-mounted telephones to enhance emergency messaging capabilities. The thing that I will say about that is that we have to just be careful, because safety is a perception. Yes, I'm a psychologist, of course, I think that way. But safety is a perception. Because I can tell you, on the morning of December 6th, earlier in the morning, I wasn't concerned about safety. At about 11:54, that's all I could think about was the safety of our community. And so we have to make sure that we put in the technology, we put in those safeguards. But I'll tell you what, and I'm so glad that all of you all are here, what we also have to do is make sure that we're remembering that we have to be a community. We actually have to care for one another. We have to look out for each other. And that doesn't even take as much effort as one might think. And so we have to think about that piece of it too. We will continue to think about ways that we can bolster mental health, particularly with the workforce. We have our Center for Counseling and Psychological Services, who actually, it's Jamie Davidson and his crew. If you join me in giving them a round of applause as well. They weren't prepared. Now, they were prepared because the provost and I actually, interestingly enough, the year before had increased number of students, increased number of staff, but it still wasn't enough. But thank goodness we had done that one step. And it was interesting because, you know, we're talking about how we can think about the future. I don't think the provost and I were really focused on the future. We were just looking at need now, and we needed to increase it. And wow, you know, it helped us for the future. So some of that future thinking, we've got to think maybe something will happen, maybe it won't. Maybe this will happen, maybe it won't. But we've got to think about and dream about that future. Around healthcare, we need to think about general medical education. I've been very pleased in the conversations that the governor's been having about being able to support more GME. I'm going to just do this one little aside, just to say one of the issues is that what tends to happen for the medical field is that, you know, you get your degree and then you go do your residency. And where people do their residencies, about 70% of them tend to stay where they are. And it's partly because they got used to it, it's a nice place. If they've got a significant other there, there's all these things keeping them there. And our problem is that we don't have enough here. So if we lose them to someplace out of state, it's harder to get them back. Even though many of them want to come back, it just becomes more difficult. So we're working on that as a state. There's been support in the past, and I hope we get more support in the future for expanding nurses. And some of the other things that we're interested in even talking to the legislature about include information technology, trying to bolster mental health, our public safety, and some other asks. We do this not only as an individual institution, we actually do that in coordination with NSHE, with our Board of Regents, and so that it won't just be one entity. For some of them, there's similarities across them, and that hopefully is going to make more powerful arguments for getting funding for things in higher education. There's also some talks about a film studio or film studios. And, you know, it's funny, I've got little notes up here and it's like, don't say. You know, be careful. Those aren't ours, but it's one of those things that happens in Vegas, is that you come together. Both of those entities, two of the entities that are looking for film tax bills, actually want to have our students, because we have an incredible film school or film program that they recognized, and they said, wow, you know, we could get your students to come over here and work for us. They can do internships. We think it's great, but two, we're not so stupid as to understand, to make this work, you do need us. And so we're talking with them, trying to figure out what kinds of programs need to be done, but that's something that I think we can see for the future. Can you imagine, for example, I think there's a school, what is it called? It's west of here, the University of Spoiled Children? No, it's, I'm gonna get in trouble for that. I actually pay tuition for someone at University of Southern California, but it's got a great film school. What if UNLV had the #1 or #2 film school in the country? Oh, you're quiet. It could happen. We can do it. Those are possibilities that are in the realm of possibilities for our future, and we need to think about it. I want to make sure that we think about what is happening in the country in terms of higher education. There's a lot of online, and it came in part from the pandemic, and what we saw is that we actually can do things online. And at UNLV, we still believe, and I believe we still are, we're a brick and mortar school. That's where our strength truly is. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do things online. We have been doing more things online. We've been creating micro-credentials. We've been creating credentials that are both for credit and non-credit. We have 16 different online degree programs. Now, should we grow that? By 2050, should we have 50? I'm not sure. I know we need to be in that space. We need to offer that opportunity because one of the things we've seen come out of the pandemic is the ability to offer courses online, allow our students more flexibility to be able to work. And that's something that, as you get your UNLV degree, many students have to do. So it's a reality that we need to keep in mind. Now, we've had a couple of programs that have been around and online for a while. Our nursing program is 21st nationally. Did you know that? The nursing program's killing it. Our online psychology program is ranked 25th nationally. See, when we do things at UNLV, we do them pretty well. We just have to figure out what we're going to do. So one of the other things in terms of what I hope a student gets to do in this 21st century version of UNLV is to take what they're learning in the classroom and apply it. Internships are actually fantastic. I love internships for students because it gives them that chance to do it in a real world setting. But we don't want to just wait for internships. We need to give other opportunities for students, and we've been doing that. One of those is the President's Innovation Challenge. And what this does is allow students to get in interdisciplinary little groups, and it's a Shark Tank-like situation where they then have ideas that they pitch, and they get a pretty nice little award for doing it. And for many of them, what they're doing is turning them into businesses. This year, very interestingly enough, we're going to do one. You'll never guess this. It's way out in left field. Doesn't make any sense. Sports innovation. Kind of makes sense since we're a sports town now, right? And these are going to be some of the people that I can tell you, almost all of the professional teams are either going to have a representative who is going to be a judge, and for many of them, they have given money to support it because they know our students are smart, and they may give something that they can use for the future, or they'll see talent in someone who's there. These are wonderful opportunities to have these student challenges. Daniel Chi out of the College of Business, and I have been talking about, he's going to design an investment group challenge. Imagine, if you could, that you get digital money. Okay, I'm not a Bitcoin person, I'm not saying that, but you just give people electronic money. You give some student groups electronic money. And they try to figure out in 60 days how they can grow it, where you invested in, they follow it, and at the end of those 60 days, we have a little setting, and we say, who made the most money? And then what we do is that we give them some money. Hopefully not just to pay for tuition, maybe they can invest it. But it's taking what they're learning in these classes and applying it. We need to do lots of that. One of the other areas that we could do it in is in terms of social entrepreneurship. Being able to grow nonprofits. Being able to do things that are really not for the money, it's for the purpose. It's for the outcome. And we have lots of students who are interested in that, and we need to give that another opportunity to grow. I knew this was going to happen. They gave me this clock, and I was supposed to wrap it up. I'm just like, nah, it ain't going to happen. I got just a couple more things. If you just hold with me for just a second, let me just get a couple more points before we start bringing this to an end. One of them is that at academic institutions, one of the most important things that you can do is create institutes and centers. The reason being is that it's another way in which you actually bring really smart people together. Individually, they're smart. Put them together, it's magnified. And so we've been doing that. One of the ones that we have that I think is just, it's prime. It's prime for who we are. It's prime for what we do. It's prime for who we are even as a city. And that's the Sands Institute for Chinese Language and Culture. Big shout out to Provost Hevey. He spent a lot of time and long flying flights. It's funny, I've done work with China and actually helped set up a campus in China when I was at another school. I won't name the school. And so he and I would have these conversations, and I realized I was telling him all of the horrible things that could happen. And one day he kind of looked at me and goes, well, Keith, do you really believe this? I said, no, don't get me wrong. It's just knowing the experience I have of all the challenges. And he navigated them masterfully. He made a great connection with the Sands. And so it's a great it's a public-private partnership that advances our ability to be able to both expand our brand, but be able to share our knowledge with an entirely different country. It's going to have cultural programs, it's going to have art exhibits, it's going to have musical performance, it's going to have lectures, it's going to have lots of things. Another important institute that we have is a Cannabis Institute. And Rihanna Durrett has been leading that since about 2023. One of the things that, as we talked about this, that I thought was important is that I don't know if we should focus on the research behind, how powerful THC is, but we do need, as we've seen, the growth of it in our state, is to talk about the policy implications and how do we really think about what happens in terms of legal pieces to it. All of those sorts of things, the Cannabis Center actually talks about. And so it is positioned to be a leader in Nevada, but I think it's going to be a leader in the country in terms of talking about some of the policies and industry things that are going on relative to cannabis, because I don't think we're not going backwards, we're going forwards. In terms of other institutes and centers, one of the ones that is most near and dear to my heart is financial literacy. We have an Institute for Financial Literacy and Wellness. And I tell you the reason why is that if you're like me, I have kids, adult kids. They're old too. They make me feel really old. They're my stepkids. But with every single one of them, we had to have that rich dad, poor dad conversation with them about how you manage money. And I won't tell you what I'm betting, but they didn't listen to everything. And so I've always been excited about, can't we figure out ways in which we can teach kids from an early age and definitely during college? Because one of the biggest challenges, if you look at our students, when our students run into trouble and they maybe have to stop out, it tends not to be because of academics. It tends to be because it's financial. Now, I'm not saying that they're just bad with money, but the better you are with money, the better you'll be able to stay at our university, and that's what a goal should be. So this is one that is just near and dear to my heart. As a university, we participate in junior achievement. I'll give a big shout out to Michelle Jackson, who runs junior achievement. And in April, and I want to say it's the 4th, they have Swimming with the Big Fish. And if you have never seen this, you need to see it. It is 5th graders who are pitching companies. And what you watch and see is that you get excited because you're like, that kid's in 5th grade. What are they going to be like when they're in 11th grade? What are they going to be like when, because you can already see they've learned a whole bunch of other things. Junior Achievement does that. Our institute is going to do that for college students. And I talked with someone and they were saying, well, you need to do it earlier. I was like, yeah, we do need to do it earlier, but we got to take with what we get. And we want to make sure that every student has as much financial literacy as possible. So we're working on that. I want to talk very little about the landscape of athletics. To say it's been crazy is an underestimate. And it's one of the things as a college president, every college president has a different foci, different background, different strengths, different weaknesses. Okay, I'm a fan, but to see what's going on, it is changing colleges and universities. It's changing our society of what's happening around college football. And we had some conference realignment. Name, image, likeness has gone crazy. I can't tell you how I really feel about it because this is being recorded. And as the conference Mountain West chair, I kind of just shouldn't say how I really feel, but it's made it so that it's a very complex setting. And what's interesting is that we have been, with all this craziness going on, thriving. One way in which we have thrived is through the incredible support and generosity of Diana Bennett. So Diana Bennett has started a program, I want to say it's Empower Her, I get it wrong, and it's to say that we've got all of this excitement about, college sports. Well, how many college athletes actually go on? Only about 2%. And for women, it's about 0.045. So they get this great experience, but are they ready for the real world? They've been athletes, they have an incredible task of being both a student and an athlete. So she started a program that actually will help. I think about it as like a finishing school, to give them the other kinds of things that will help them be successful. And actually, I think that what they are teaching actually will not just help them relative to going out into the real world, but even if they are a professional athlete, because they have to manage their name, image, likeness. And it's teaching them that. It's going to be an incredible program. Actually, we need to do it for our men as well. And I think this is where we're going to start. She is very open to thinking about how we can grow it larger. And my thought is that I want us to be the leader in the Mountain West in doing that. But I will say, if you haven't been, we play in the best college stadium in the country, is what I would argue, in terms of for football. We've had 2 great seasons. We have an incredible coach. It's going to be tough because I'm going to be sensitive and not try to, it's not insulting anybody. We had a really great coach. Came in, boy, killed it first 2 years. And then he got a lot of money going. But if you look at his winning record, the coach that we're getting's record is actually better. Now, college athletics is it's tough right now. But it's clear to me, and it's clear to lots of folks, that he's going to be able to come in and help us to be successful. And so we can try to keep that momentum going. But what is so wonderful about this is still remembering that they're student athletes. UNLV football leads the nation with 3 first-team academic All-Americans. Get this. This is the first time it's happened in our country since 2022. It's this goofy little school that sits out on Stanford. You've heard about it? Yeah. We compete with them. One of the other things that we have is that we have a cadre of incredible coaches. I'm going to get in trouble again because I'm going to show a little bit of favoritism, is for Lindy LaRock, our women's basketball coach. She has been leading teams that dominate the Mountain West. Just want to say thank you to her, to all of our coaches for all that you're doing. I got so inspired. I got so excited. I was like, boy, last season, Lindy's team had, I think it was at least 3 games. I thought it was maybe 4. Games where they scored over 100 points. I was like jumping up and down and screaming. I always have to be careful because, some people actually know who I am and they're going to say, God, the guy's crazy. He's this crazy fan. I'm just excited about our women athletes doing so well. And actually our men started off their first game last season. They scored over 100 points. So it's like, this is just so incredible. I got a couple of bucks in my pocket. Why don't I donate $1,000 every time a team scores over 100 points to our student scholarships? I have to apologize because ever since I did that, they have not scored over 100 points. So we will see. But we're having success not even on those courts, but this is the part, it makes me smile. There's so many things to be proud about this university. So you've heard about the Rebel Girls and Company. They yet again won a national championship. And you don't have to, well, it's cheerleader or whatever. No. You got to watch our Rebel Girls Company. They are one of the most entertaining pieces. I mean, that's why when you go to one of our games, it's 24/7. It's the whole time. It's exciting. And not only have our Rebel Girls and Company won a national championship, but our UNLV cheer team has won a national championship. I clicked for another slide and I was like, don't I have more to talk about? And I'm looking at the time saying, oh yeah, we're way over. I better stop. We have lots to be proud of. We have gotten here from each and every one of you. Just coming to this, you're participating. This is going to make our university better. Things are going to come from it. We have our regents who work very, very I mean, one of them ran to be a legislature because they were working her to death as a regent, I think. We have all of these parts and pieces working together for the betterment of our university, which is committed to the betterment of our society, for our community. This is truly just a small piece. And what I just wanted to try to do is to just get you to think about the future. Because we can't worry, even with all the stress we have. We have to, yes, manage what's going on now. We have to try to address it and think what's important and do all those kinds of things. But we've got to make sure that we remain conscious and vigilant about the future. Now, before I ask some special guests that hopefully will help put this into context, let me show you another video. Let's show that video, if you would.
What are you drawing?
I'm drawing me when I grow up.
I'm drawing me with the crane lifting a window into the house. I want to be an engineer.
What are you drawing?
When I grow up, I want to be a pet doctor. This is me playing for UNLV, and I'm scoring a touchdown. This is me studying business at UNLV, and then I am being a boss. I want to be a police officer when I grow up because I want to keep people safe and be famous.
Is that you dancing on stage?
Yeah, that's my tutu. I want to be a veterinarian. Me helping this dog here, my co-vet asking me, hey, is that dog okay? Me be like, yeah, can you get some shots ready? And so she got the shot. When I grow up, I want to be a race car driver. When I grow up, I want to be an artist.
What I want to be when I grow up is a video game designer.
What about you, Teddy?
A dentist dancer.
Oh, what about you, Charlotte?
I want to be a chemist scientist when I grow up.
So you see why I saved them for last, because you clapped a whole lot louder for them than ever for me. I really want to thank Miss Claudia and the Bumblebee class. And other than them being just adorably cute and entertaining, it's really the idea that as we're trying to think about our future, this is what we have to be thinking about. We have to be doing the things that we're doing for the right reasons, because they're going to get an opportunity. As you see, lots of UNLV, and I love your outfit. Boy, we can use you. You did good. This is about the next generation of rebels. This is about what our future is going to be. This is going to be the legacy of UNLV, which continues to evolve. We are all rebels in this room. We make it happen, and we make it better. Thank you all so much for your time today. If you would, please join me in thanking my guests again.